Hello, Mark Red Larson here for the Dreamcatcher podcast. Thanks for joining us. Today, my guest is J.R. Spear. How are you doing, J.R.?
Doing good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thanks for being our guest. So, J.R., we really haven't known each other very long, very recently. So, where are you located at? A little bit of background.
Yeah, I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, but I live in Northern Virginia outside of DC. I'm former military, so I was in the Navy, but attached to the Marine Corps back in 2004 and well, went in 2003, but I was stationed out here in 2004. Met my beautiful bride while I was living out here, so we've been together ever since. And then, spent our first 7 years of marriage in St. Louis and then moved back out here in 2016 to be close to our family once we decided to grow our family and have kids. So that's kind of what brought us back out here.
Awesome. How many kids do you have?
We got four little ones. So my oldest, I have three boys and one girl. So I have a
Okay.
9-year-old boy, a 7-year-old boy, a 4-year-old girl, and almost 2-year-old boy. So
Wow.
definitely energy, a lot of energy and stuff going around the house.
A lot going on in your house, definitely, that's for sure. So what is it? I mean, what did you do in St. Louis, and then what are you doing now?
Oh gosh. So when I first got out of the military, well, I went when I was in the military, I was in Iraq in 2006, 2007. I had every intention of retiring in the service, but I just did
Okay.
4 years done. And there was one specific event that definitely changed the trajectory of my life where I survived a suicide bombing at a walk-in checkpoint in Barwana, Iraq. And so the guy killed himself about 7 feet from me. And even though I don't have any external injuries, the whole right side of my body is still affected today from the side of my face to hearing to extension of my arm and my back and everything like that. So I decided to get out. I was not medically retired, but I decided to get out. Shortly after getting back from deployment of May 31st, 2007,
Okay.
and finished my contract, and then moved back to St. Louis. And at that time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I
Okay.
was already signed up to go to Bible college and was going for
Cool.
youth ministry. So I was doing that, and I went for one semester and realized I didn't need to be a professional Christian or have a degree as a worship leader to be a worship leader because I was already
Mm-hmm.
doing it professionally in churches and stuff like that. So I did. So I stopped a semester of doing that, and then went to pursue a basic business degree. So I have a bachelor's
Okay.
in business administration. But during that time, at the same time starting college, getting back from combat, I started my first business, which was a martial arts school. And
Nice.
I mean, I've been doing martial arts since I was about 3 years old. Grew up in a family-owned
Wow.
business. Been teaching since I was about 10.
Cool.
I had the pleasure of teaching a lot of Marines and sailors while I was active duty in the military.
Yeah.
So it was kind of in my blood to be able to do it. I knew because of my injuries that I endured from the military, I was never going to be able to be a competitive fighter again. And so my background, started out in Japanese form martial arts, and I switched to Taekwondo. Done a lot of American kickboxing and Muay Thai, and that was a hard shift for me because I knew I
Bet.
really wanted to get in competitive fighting, especially in kickboxing, and enjoy that. But because I couldn't write, I got into teaching and was like, okay, well,
Okay.
what can I do? So I started opened up a school and started teaching the program. Did really well with it. And after a couple of years, ended up selling my business and then started an outdoor group fitness business, which was called Power Fit Boot Camp. And that
Okay.
eventually launched to 4 different cities with more than 30 to 50 locations and 30 instructors working for me. And
Wow.
did it for about a decade and absolutely loved it. I
Uh,
found passion, desire, but more so, I found my desire for teaching instructors and teaching them on how to
okay.
build a business and sales and marketing and all this stuff that's entailed from running
Right.
a
Right.
business, which led me down the road of getting into business coaching, consulting, and which in 2016, when we started growing our family, had our first baby, which is 9 now, is when we moved to Virginia, and that's when I kind of started pursuing business coaching and consulting. And since then, I've helped hundreds of entrepreneurs start, grow, and scale their businesses since then, and it's
Wow.
kind of been a huge passion and desire of mine, and something that I love to do.
That is so awesome. So when you were, I mean, I asked you the other day when we were talking. So when you were growing up, what was your dreams? When you were going to be an adult, what were you dreaming that you'd be when you
Yeah.
grew up?
So I didn't really know. I was a trouble
Okay.
kid. Yeah, I was a trouble kid in high school and didn't really have any desire. Like I wasn't a good student in school,
Okay.
and so I never wanted to go to college or anything like that at the time. And what brought me to the military was because I was always in trouble. This it's a funny story because like I lost my
Okay.
license, I lost my job, I couldn't drive, and
Oh
I
wow.
had a lot of court fees from getting in trouble, and so I was like, okay, I don't have any money. So my grandma, who was a very important person in my life and my upbringing, she came over to our house one day, and I asked her, I said, "Hey, Grandma, can you drive me to some pawn shops?"
Uh
So
huh.
pawn shops are places that will buy things from
Uh
you.
huh.
Can you take me to some pawn shops so I can sell some of my stuff to make some money
Right.
to pay off my court fees? And or else I'm gonna have to go back to jail or do something like that. And so
Mm-hmm.
she agreed. So I threw a bunch of my things in there, my TV or whatever I could find, just threw it in the back of her car. We're
Sure.
driving down the main street in St. Louis, Missouri, and she pulls behind a shopping center and parks the car, and right in front of us was the recruiting station. And she goes, "You're gonna do it, then you're gonna sign up for the military. I don't care what branch, but you're not coming out until you
Oh,
do."
grandma.
So I sat there and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to say no to my grandma, but
Uh-huh.
and I'm going to listen to what she says. And but I knew I was going to go Army or Air Force at the time. My grandfather was retired Navy. My uncle, he was a Marine, and I knew I didn't want to go in the Marine Corps because I just thought they worked too hard. And so I was like, okay, I'll
Uh-huh.
follow my grandfather's path and go in the Navy.
Sure.
Well, God has a different sense of humor because I go to boot camp in the Navy, and I aim to spend my next 4 years with the Marine Corps, and absolutely love it. So people ask me like what branch I was like. Yeah, I was in the Navy, but I don't know anything about the Navy. So talk to me about the grunt life and the Marine Corps and infantry. I can share a ton, but I don't know anything about Navy or that life. But when it comes to desires and passions, I really didn't have any direction of knowing what I wanted to do, what I wanted to
Okay.
be. And I rededicated my life to Christ when I was 17, and knew I wanted to be in some sort of mission at that time. And so like my job in the military, I was actually it was called an RP, so I was a religious program specialist, which was essentially security for the chaplain because chaplains are non-combatants; they can't carry weapons, so they had someone like me that is the weapon for time of
Okay.
combat.
Right.
And of course, we do administrative duties and things like that. But I loved my job. I loved what I did, and then I loved playing music. When I was in the military is when I started learning to play the guitar, and I've always sang growing up.
Okay.
So I had the joke when I was in Iraq that I always had my rifle in one hand, my guitar in the other hand, because I always threw my guitar in the back of the Humvee wherever we went, because I would lead worship for the Marines when they're out
Nice.
in the fobs and things like that. And so that was always my true heart and passion, was to do that. And I love teaching, I love giving back, I love serving people. And so when I think as a child, I would always give like the straight up answer that every kid does. I want to be a doctor, a police officer,
Yeah.
or something
Exactly.
like that. And
Yeah.
and I was strongly considering going into the police force and wanting to be on
Okay.
SWAT. And yeah, and it's funny because I always said I want to be like that secret agent. I want to be like that
Uh-huh.
FBI guy.
Yeah.
I want to be the CIA agent or something like that. Just because growing up in martial arts, I just love combat. I love fighting. I competed since I was a little kid, and just that type of atmosphere of wanting to serve and help people was instilled in my blood.
I can
And
tell.
so I actually talked to a lot of police officers and
Mm-hmm.
people that knew me by name because they're always reaching out. They're always catching me in trouble and stuff like that. And just talk to them about like the job experience and stuff like that. So if I thought back to a child, that was something that I really want to do. But
Wow.
the older I get, I don't like identifying myself or getting the identity by what I do. But truly,
Right.
I like to adopt the of who I am and what I do by being the child of God. And because my
Oh,
whole
yes.
mission truly is to serve serve for His kingdom,
Yes.
and my businesses and the things that I do, it is just a vehicle to help get me in front of people to disciple others. And
Yes.
so I look at it from there, and that's hard because I always made my identity by what I did. In the
Cool.
military, we were identified by two things. It's your last name and the rank that you wear on your collar or the job that you have. Or so three things. So they knew me as like RP3 Spear. So RP being my job, the three was my rank, and then my last name being Spear. But no one knew me as a person. And
Yeah.
so when you're in that place in the military, you are government property, and you are identified by what you do and the rank that you had. And so went through that shift, and then getting out of the military and opened a martial arts school, my identity became the martial artist, Mr.
Right.
Karate Kid or whatever, and then Mr. Fitness when I had my martial art or my fitness business. and then eventually becoming a business coach and success coach and stuff. And it's great. I love being that title. I love what I do, but there's a bigger calling for what God has for each one of us. I mean, in His work,
Yes.
He's got a purpose and plan that gives you hope in the future. And I really believe that my calling is to serve others, to disciple them towards the great calling that God has for them, and towards the cross. And so all of our mission is the same, that God calls us to do, and it truly is to stand in front of our Father and hear Him say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." And that's my mission and my goal of what I'm striving to achieve.
I can tell you, your passion really comes through. That's for sure. So you
Yeah.
said you rededicated your life to Christ at 17. What brought that about?
Yeah, so my mom, it was a girl, but
Wow. Can't
it,
imagine that.
which it was what got me in the door. So, I was hanging out in the wrong crowd, doing dumb things, and getting in trouble all the time, leading up to this. And the church that my mom was going to at the time, they had this huge like Oktoberfest, like around
Okay.
Halloween. So they wanted to get people away from Halloween, the traditional stuff, and they would do
Right.
like bring in rides and petting zoos, and they did games and stuff like that. So my mom was like, "Hey, why don't you come?" So I brought a couple friends with me, and I went up there, and I was like, "Sure, I'll come." And I had a sack of weed in my pocket at that time, and I'm going there, and then I meet this girl. She was
Mm-hmm.
young, same age as me, and
Mm-hmm.
beautiful blonde. And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, what? You go to church here? You're a Christian? I'm a Christian too." So
Awesome.
so I ended up hanging out with her all night, and her name was Elizabeth. And
Okay.
we still stayed friends for over the years and stuff like
Uh,
that. But it's funny how God works, because like I ended up hanging out with her all that night. She introduced me to so many other people that
mm-hmm.
were awesome, and one of them is still like one of my best friends today. And he still
Wow,
lives
that's
in St.
cool.
Louis. We just talked on the phone yesterday, and
Oh, so cool.
gosh, how many years is that later? Over 23 years or something like that. But
Uh-huh.
but yeah, so she introduced me to a lot of people, and I was before the night was, I was like, "Hey, let me get your phone number." And she was like, "Yeah, I'm homeschooled, and we don't have my own phone, and my parents don't like me giving out our house phone and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
that. But I'll be at church on this Friday if you want to come." And I was like, "I'll be here. What time?"
Yeah.
And she told me where she was sit, and I show up, and I'm there, and she's nowhere to be found. And
Oh.
so but the good thing is she introduced me to those people. So I ended up just kind of meeting those people and hanging out with them all night. And I ended up seeing her later on, not at that night, but she
Uh-huh.
was later on another day. And she told me, she was like, "Oh, someone came up and someone got sick or whatever," and she ended up not being there. But I'll tell you, that was the door that got me in there. And through that, I found a different clique,
Okay.
different
Yeah. I can
people,
see that.
new friends, and people that accepted me for who I was, and stuff like that. And God started to slowly change my heart just through those connections. And then through that, they ended up having like this big play. It was like the Christmas play that they were
Okay.
preparing for.
Yeah.
And then they asked me, like, "Hey, JR, you wanna come be part of this play?" And I was like, I love music, and I love doing this stuff, so why not?
Yeah.
So I ended up doing it, doing the church choir, doing some other activities and stuff. And it was during that time where I met one of my mentors, and still one of my Christian mentors today, that we still talk every week. And he taught me what it means to how to have a heart for worship, how to lead, how to do all these different things. And it literally changed everything for me. And it was
Mm-hmm.
during that play in production, during like a Friday night service, where the pastor, it was a pretty big church. The
Okay.
pastor, he was doing like a regular Friday night service, and I'm there. And by the end of the service, he was doing altar call, and I found myself standing in front of like 3,000 people up on that stage, not knowing how I got up there. And I was like, I ended up opening. All I knew is like I was over on the side praying with the church and everything, and then the next thing I knew, I was standing up on that stage in front of the entire group, and I was just, how in the heck did I get up here? And I will say the Holy Spirit really grabbed my heart that day,
Yes.
and that was in the winter of 2002, I think it was
Okay.
2001, 2002, so somewhere around there. And really changed my life. And
Yeah.
it was my junior year,
Okay.
so it was during that time, my junior year, I believe it was. Yeah, so junior year that year, or maybe it was going to my senior year. I think it was my senior year. I can't remember.
Okay.
So I was 17.
Okay.
So it had
That's
it had to be my senior year. It was my senior year, and that Christmas, because I was graduating that year, and then Then I ended up signing up to do like a missions trip with the youth. Made a lot of friends.
Okay.
A massive youth program. The first time I went on a plane, went to California and then Mexico, and just
Uh-huh.
really found who God called me to be at that time, and really transformed my heart, changed my soul servant. And here's the other thing too: is when God's got a mission and a plan for you, like
He,
He's not going to let anything stop it.
he
And like
is not.
all those other people that I was connected to and hanging out with, it's like none of them called me. Like it was like almost like that night when I rededicated my life and found myself on the stage. I remember going and walking outside and I had a sack of weed in my pocket and I threw it away in the trash outside of the church, and never looked back at it. And just
Yep.
with those same circle of friends, like they never called me. I never been in touch with them, and it was just cool how God
I know what you
completely
mean.
not just transformed my heart and my life and that transformation for me, but it was my circles and the people that I was connected to completely changed overnight,
Yes.
and it was just
Yes.
amazing of how big of an effect that had on me.
Yeah.
So
I do know what you mean. I mean, the people that you hung out with they almost not like strangers, but you just can't relate with them, or I don't know what the feeling is, but it's
yeah,
just you definitely change, and God works in mysterious ways.
yeah, he
I
does.
truly believe He brought us together for this podcast too. I have no doubt on that. So what I know today? What do you do today?
Yeah, so I help small business owners with growth and development of their business, and one way that I do that is through my 1 day events mastery program, where
Okay.
I teach them from start to finish in 90 days of how to launch and grow a profitable event, and to do that for closing more business and more high ticket type services.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if you got a service or a product. There's an event for you that can help you get more leads and grow and close more sales and get more business.
Nice.
And so I learned the strategy of how to host 1 day events when I had the martial arts school as part of the mastermind. My coach at that time showed me how to create offers, how to host events, and how to leverage that to build my business. And so I make that part of my core offer. So anyone that's a coach or an entrepreneur that's saying, "Hey, I want something different," to be able to get outside from behind the computer to grow my business through events, those are the type of people I love. And here's the thing about events: a lot of people have the desire and knowing that they should do an event, but they get scared because it is a logistics nightmare if you don't know what you're doing.
Right. Oh
I
yeah.
mean, you got to worry about like all of the cost and the fees of what all this entailed, the filling the seats, the amount of people, and all these different things. But what I'm teaching people how to do is hosting micro events of
Okay.
20 or less people at an event versus needing 30 or more people or 50 or 100 or whatever. And the reason why I say 20 or less, because most people have a contact list of 20 people or less that they can get into a room and
Interesting.
that would be interested in what you have to offer. And so
Very interesting.
not just that, it's 20 people or less, but also doing it on a budget of less than $1,000 to host your event. And then you're going to make that money back through ticket sales. And so there's three different ways to make money, which is ticket sales, sponsorships, and your upsell offer
Right.
for what you got. But then you got the other side of people that are already hosting events, but they just don't know how to monetize an event. So they're not good at creating offers, they're not good at creating that perfect pitch, and they're not good at selling from the stage. And so I work with those type of people how to overcome those different things. And so it's a simple, duplicatable program that I walk people through step by step process, so that way they can put it on repeat to do it over and over again. I
Yeah.
not only coach them through it, but I also build out their sales page and their automation. I work with them on their offers and their pitches and everything that they need, but to teach them from building a profitable event. I mean, I have, just looking back the years, I had one client that I helped. Before she hired me, she already scheduled an event, and with her current offer that she had and her presentation that she was going
Mhm.
to deliver, she probably would have made less than $10,000. I shifted her entire presentation, changed her entire offer and her value stack, and then she walked away that 1 day with a $109,000 contract.
Wow.
I had another client of mine that he helped nonprofits with generating more cash flow and
Sure.
revenue
Yeah.
profit, and we were working on his event, and he was telling me he was doing all the work until the week of, and he's like, "JR, I got to be honest, I didn't do anything you said. I got one person registered for that event, and I think I'm going to cancel." I said, "Hell, you are. You're not canceling the event. You committed to that person that you're going to do that event.
Yes.
You're going to show up and do that event."
Yes.
And he went to that event, and it was the most fruitful experience you've ever had because he walked away with a $30,000 contract with that one person.
Wow.
Yeah, and I have another person recently, just in the past couple of months. She was terrified to host her own event just because she kept getting her own head, and she was dragging her feet for months. She's still a client of mine, been with me for more than, gosh, a year and a half, almost 2 years now. And we hosted her first. She hosted her first event in beginning of this year, and she got 3 people to that. It was like 3 or 4 people to her event, and she closed $12,000 profit from that experience, from that event. And then I had another guy that he's an attorney, and she's a financial coach. I have an attorney that he's doing another event today.
Okay.
And but he did an event back in February. He said that one event he closed $23,000 in profits. This event that he hosted today, it's today and tomorrow. He lives in Texas. He's an attorney. Before going into the event, he was already at $4,000 profit. Now with his upsell, I guarantee you that he's probably going to close at a minimum of $10,000 more. He'll probably get another $20,000 or $30,000 plus from there. So the system works. I taught this attorney a simple process that he's been able to duplicate over and over and over again that created more opportunities for him to be able to get more business for his coaching program and his law office. But then I'm working with other people that that they're getting out of their fear, stepping out of their comfort zone to do something that they always knew they wanted to do, but this never did. Here's something that people need to understand. Do the research and see any big guru out there that has a successful business. And I can almost bet you that it always surrounds himself around events every single time. Whether it's in networking, whether it's doing an expo, vendor fair, whether they're a participant in a trade show, whether they're hosting their own workshops or VIP days, whatever it may be. But if you look at the church has been hosting events for more than 2,000 years and still get people to show up every week and ask them for money, and yet it's still thriving. There's still churches growing, starting in every corner in every part of this world, and it's still not dying. Events is the one true thing that won't die because people value connections, relationships, and they want community.
Yes.
So when you find the right group of people that you could serve and get them into a room to help them solve a problem that they desire, that they need help with the most, and then give them something of value that can help them ongoing, you could build a thriving business from this simple model. That's what I do.
Awesome. That is very awesome. So how do people find you?
Yeah, so the best way, I like this. I have a free, simple blueprint that I would love to give them on this exact process. It's literally a 30-page document that they can go get right now, completely for free, and download. And it's just www.theonedayevent, theonedayevent.com. Get your free document. Go download it. It has a step-by-step process. Everything that you need to do to host a profitable event. You can download that. Once you get in that system, you'll see a link on how to book a call with me, and then I'll love to help them. But it's theonedayevent.com. Download that free document, and then you start implementing it right away.
Awesome. And we'll put that in the show notes too, so that website or that address. So,
cool.
So make sure people will find you. So, so what is next? I mean, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I'm on the hunt for that right now. And
I know how that goes.
Yeah, but he's doing some work in me. He's really put some big visions in my life, and he's stepping me into places of really leading being that general, leading a lot of top leaders in different places, and counseling from a biblical standpoint. And so I'm just kind of on this open journey to be like, okay, where I'm just learning to be prepared and be ready for whatever God calls me to do. And so whether it's leading people through discipleship or business or whatever it may be, I'm going whatever that looks like. And so I'm kind of in that stage of life where I'm saying, all right, God, what is it for me? Here I am, surrendering everything I got to you. You have equipped me with tools and resources that can help people in a big way. How can this be utilized for your kingdom? And he's doing it. Like I'm helping an organization called G3, and we're hosting our first summit in October in St. Louis, Missouri. And it's going to be geared for Christian business leaders. And so I'm really excited about that. So we're going to have opportunities for nonprofits or mission work for people to set up a table. We're going to have different speakers. I'll be speaking at the event as well. And we'll have some time for worship, which I'll probably be leading worship for everyone. And it'll just be a really cool and intimate time to just go deeper, but learn what God has called you to be when it says being holy, but also the vision on how to actually implement what it means to be holy in the workforce and in the mission field for where you're at. because most people just don't know how to do that. They don't know how to be
True.
holy or how to be that Christian or that person that God's called them to be in the work field and in the mission field. And so we're going to talk a lot about that, and then just bring some fruit and life to their business and the purpose that God's called them to be.
Awesome. Do you speak in front of people on stage?
I do all the time.
I figure. I mean, besides church based, or do you just in general audiences, or
Small workshops, big stages, churches, wherever.
okay? You ever thought about doing a TEDx?
Yes and no. I
Okay.
mean, yeah. I mean, I don't want to invest in that. It's not that priority to me. I mean, if the opportunity came, I would do it.
Okay. I could see you doing that. I could see. I definitely see you up on stage. I mean, so how many? What's the biggest audience you've spoken to? I can see a lot in my vision of. I can see a lot.
I mean, I've been on TV quite a bit. I've spoken on stages, probably several hundred or more, thousands of people.
Okay.
I mean, I've been to different places.
Okay. So what do you? I mean, maybe you don't have your free time. What do you do in your free time?
Good question. I don't know if they can see with the blurred screen, but love to play the guitar.
Awesome.
I'm a triathlete, so I love the sport of triathlons.
Okay.
It's my space. So the swim, bike, running. Talk about a 5-year vision. My goal in 5 years is to do a full Ironman. Never done one before. I've done a half Ironman
Nice.
in 2015, but I never done a full Ironman. So that's kind of one of my big goals and passions. I signed up for my first full marathon this year.
Awesome.
I've done a few dozen like smaller races for
Uh-huh.
guys, but I've never done a full Ironman. So that's something I love to do in my free time: worship, playing with my kids, leading my kids, playing games with them. I love teaching martial arts, so that's kind of what I do as well. And I
Good.
teach a homeschooling group, so we homeschool all of our kids, and I teach
Okay.
a homeschooling group. I have about 15, 16 kids in there that I teach. So
Wow. So you
um,
don't have much free time.
I
Oh
got
my gosh. But it's not work when you're doing your passion and your calling. That's for sure.
I
So
love it. God's calling me something bigger, and He's gonna give me the energy and the resources that I need to do it.
yes, amen. So if somebody was thinking about doing an event, I mean, do you have things where like calls where people can call you, and if they're thinking about doing something like that, or like a preliminary kind of screening call, vetting call?
Yeah. So the first step that I always like people to do is to download that resource that I just gave them at the
Okay, just do that. Okay.
be1dayevent.com. And that's going to be the great place to get started. And in there, they'll be redirected to my contact information to schedule a call. But I do have a couple of preliminary things that they need before I would help personally. And one, they have to be willing to host an event in 90 days. So if they're not willing to host an event in 90 days, then they're not going to be a good fit for me.
Right,
They
right.
have to be willing to invest. I mean, it's not a cheap program, but it's not that expensive.
No, no.
So I mean, but I also give them a 2x guarantee. I mean, if you're not going to at least 2x your investment with me, I'm going to work with you on your next event until you actually do. And
Awesome.
so currently, as of today, the investment is $5,000 for 90 days for me to work with you. And so my goal is to help you make at least $10,000 from your event and to go with there. And the third thing is you got to be coachable. Like if you're not
Yeah.
willing to listen to what I have to say and show up to calls, well, then it's not going to be a good fit.
Nope.
So be coachable, be ready to invest, and then be willing to host your event in 90 days. I normally don't get on a call with someone to talk about the opportunity unless they're ready to get started. I
Makes
mean, they already
sense.
know the investment, the cost, and they already know what I expect from them.
Okay.
But I will say, those that raise their hands saying I'm ready, they're taking action on it.
Okay. So do you have a podcast?
I got a podcast that was rated pretty high up there in the rankings and
Cool.
for many, many years, but I haven't contributed to it for over a year and a half or maybe a little bit
Okay.
longer. It's called the Daily Creep Podcast Show, and the reason why is because I just feel like God's calling me to a different mission, and I am considering starting a different podcast,
Okay.
and that's strictly focusing for Christian business leaders, and the topic will be how to navigate your faith in the mission field. And it would be 15-minute episodes where people talk about their testimony and what they do, and like
Cool.
top leaders that talks about how they navigate their faith in the mission field and go from there. But I do interviews on my social media to help to help showcase different entrepreneurs to give them more exposure. So that is something I do for no charge and just to give back as a servant leader.
Okay. So I mean, does your family, your wife help you with all this calling? No? They
No, my
kind of
wife is part of the bigger mission of homeschooling our kids.
yeah,
So
I
she
can't even
homeschools.
imagine.
I contribute to help homeschool as well. But she homeschools our kids and holds down the fort and does all those things while I'm able to do the other stuff. And all the business stuff is there just to support our family and our lifestyle and to give back to the mission field. But other than that, our family is first. That's the first mission.
Yeah, I agree. So talking about mission, have you ever gone on a mission trip?
Just that one, but I
Just
feel
that
like
one?
every day.
Okay.
But I feel like every day is a mission. We're
That's true.
every day God brings opportunities to talk to
Oh,
people.
yes.
Gosh, even one of my clients, we had a whole call today, that was just about his faith and where he's at and what he's gone through, and God used me to pour into him. So to me, it's like, everyone thinks that you need to go on a mission field that's out of state, out of the country, or to
Yeah,
do something. But the reality is, we have our biggest mission here in the home front that we forget about.
I agree. Very much agree on that. So, yeah, and it's interesting how God puts those people on your path. I'm
Yeah.
actually one tomorrow morning. I think he's been yep. I think the guy tomorrow morning. He's kind of lost, and I'm maybe he's like 18 years old, and I pray that I can show him at least the way to go forward. So he hasn't had the easiest life up to this point. So
Sometimes when it comes to discipling someone like that, it's not about you giving them any tools or the words. It's just being there to listen and being a
yeah,
friend, and that
yep.
that can make a bigger impact than anything else.
Yeah, he likes to have coffee, and I love coffee, but he wants to have coffee just about every day, which I guess I'm honored. But and there'll be coffee tomorrow morning too. But yeah, sometimes like I tell my wife, you never know what the effect you're having on somebody. You may not think like a big deal to yourself, but um, yeah, and I think that is so cool. So before we end the podcast, Jr., anything else you would like to share with the Dreamcatcher audience?
No, I mean, if anyone's interested in wanting to know how to leverage one day events for building their business, then just go download that free guide at theonedayevent.com and get started on there. I mean, I would love for that to bless as many people as possible and to
Yes.
help them get to where they need to go, because events has definitely blessed me and my family and my life and many other clients, and love to get that in more hands.
Awesome. Well, JR, thank you. And thank you for what you do. And thank God for crossing our paths. So,
Yeah.
because I think remember we talked on Messenger for a while, but I'm not for sure how before that. But,
Well, I'm
no,
glad we're connected.
yep, me too. So, well, JR, I'll end it right there. Thanks again for joining us. And you have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.